Alright, tell me if you have heard this story before. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. PlayStation has just canceled two more live service games. That graveyard is getting fairly packed at this point. This is coming from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg. Sony cancels two more PlayStation projects. The company told subsidiaries Sony Bend and Bluepoint it will work with them to determine their next steps and minimize job losses. Sony Group Corp's PlayStation has canceled previously unannounced games at two of its top subsidiaries, the company said Thursday. The games at Oregon-based Bend Studio and Texas-based Bluepoint Games were both live service projects designed to draw recurring revenue from players. A company spokesperson confirmed the cancellations in a statement. The spokesperson said the two games were canceled following a recent review and that PlayStation will continue making both online and single-player games. Neither studio will be shuttered. Bend and Bluepoint are highly accomplished teams who are valued members of the PlayStation Studios family, and we are working closely with each studio to determine what are the next projects, the spokesperson said. And then it goes on to kind of talk about the future of PlayStation and their live service division and all of those plans, which we'll talk about here as well. But yeah, man, this is not surprising to any of us at all. I wouldn't suspect. The only thing that's kind of surprising to me is that Bluepoint was working on a service game at all, and it was speculated. I think I saw it on Shinobi's Twitter talking about that Bluepoint was working on a God of War live service game, and it's like, what? Well, why in the world would anybody be working on a God of War live service anything? People jump into God of War because the story is incredible. Like what? I think that if you look at Demon Souls that they released in that was 2020 because it was like a launch window game for the PS5. That kind of makes more sense to me to parlay that kind of like an Elden Ring Night Rain. That might have been the correct pivot for Bluepoint to make like a Souls, create your own new Souls IP that's kind of live servicey, kind of Monster Hunter-y. But hey, okay, well, yeah, we also have Horizon that's trying to ape Monster Hunter with a live service thing in the future. So yeah, the fact that they were working on a God of War live service game is just it's a lot of mismanagement. It's a lot of really weird, seemingly desperate plays to make a break in this live service market. It's just so crazy to think that Sony Bend is sitting there with a game that released in 2019 that was an ultra ambitious open world thing with crazy technology on offer with the horde mechanic and, going out and strategizing and setting up your run before you had to encounter the hordes. And there's just so many interesting gameplay mechanics in Days Gone and an interesting world that you built up, a little bit of interesting lore, a nice kind of cliffhanger ending sitting right there that can, theoretically could be expanded on with a follow-up game if you just iterate. And I know that it took so long for Days Gone to get out the door, but it's like at this point, when you got the bones there, why not try to create that Days Gone 2? A game that sold tens of millions of copies, and to look at that studio and be like, yeah, well, we're going to put you on a service game. We're going to put you on a live service game, Sony Bend, the Siphon Filter creator. And it's just, I don't know. And I think that IP makes a ton of sense as well. Siphon Filter, try to bring that back. You know what I mean? Have your James Bond, have your PlayStation owned James Bond IP out there. See if you can muster up some hype for that thing. And it's easy for us to say this in retrospect, but I think a lot of us kind of saw the writing on the wall very early on. This market is damn near tapped. Sure, you're going to get a Helldivers 2 every now and then, but let's take a stroll through the graveyard. Concord, dead. Studio, dead. You have the Spider-Man service game that's dead. You now have Ben's game that's dead. You have Blupoint's game that's dead. Sony London, their game is dead. Their studio is dead. Twisted Metal that they had in the works is dead. The Last of Us multiplayer is dead. Deviation, the service-based shooter that they were making, is dead. I mean, billions and billions of dollars down the drain. And it's all opportunity cost. You know what I mean? This is all opportunity cost. That's all money that could have went to different projects, different things. You know, and you look at Sony London and you look back in the day at those getaway games. It's like, why the hell were they never positioned to be your Grand Theft Auto competitor? And then they made that VR game that people really liked. You know, it was like that cool VR shooter that looked really interesting. One of the very few PSVR 1 games, I'm forgetting the name of it, but it was like one of the very few PSVR 1 games that caught my eye and made me actually consider buying one of those damn things. And now that studio is just gone. And you sit here and you hope, it's like, okay, well, maybe is this Herman Holst coming in and trying to put an axe to a lot of the shit that Jim Ryan got off the ground. But then it's the rumor and then speculation that Herman Holst was kind of one of the main figureheads behind Concord and really believing in Concord and pushing Concords. It's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on over there in first party PlayStation land. And we always hear the talk, and it feels like I've said this 100 times, so I hate to repeat myself, but we always hear the talk of the Xbox mismanagement. That was constantly the thing that went on during the Xbox One generation, and rightfully so. They totally mismanaged their studios and could not get exclusives to save their lives. But it's like, why are we not having that same conversation about PlayStation? They're making great deals on the third party, but like, there's no doubt that there's some first party mismanagement going on here that definitely needs to be discussed and examined. And yeah, it's such a bummer, because if you look over at Xbox, and you hate to do the console warring shit, but just looking at it from a purely console perspective, the console business, if you did have a 2025 where you have Doom that's exclusive to Xbox, and The Outer Worlds 2, and Avowed, and South of Midnight, and Fable, if all of those games from that Xbox first party fold were actually exclusive, and we knew that they were committing to the exclusivity for those games in 2025, you have a very interesting conversation on your hands just from an optical standpoint. You know what I mean? Where it's like, yeah, PlayStation in 2025 has fair games. Yeah, fair games, right? That's why you're gonna go buy the console, right? Yeah, and then Ghost of Yote, which I don't know if anybody really believes that thing's gonna come out in 2025. I mean, hey, I hope so. Ghost of Tsushima is fucking incredible. I would love to play that in 2025. But and that's the crazy thing too. It's that, you know, they're still committing to this live service online multiplayer push. And it's like, yeah, fair games and Horizon, a Horizon MMO. That's what people want, right? This is gonna do real well, right? No. God, no, it's not. Horizon, maybe. If you can do some cool Monster Hunter style shit, go in and maybe create your own character, and then you could, the Horizon world is really, really compelling, really interesting. But how much story are you really going to tell? Are you going to get in there and Final Fantasy 14 it? I doubt it. You know what I mean? It's going to be one of those things, I would imagine, where it's just going to be something to try to nickel and dime the player, and then, you know, hopefully you can create a compelling enough gameplay loop to keep people coming back and emptying their wallet. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it bums me out to my core, because, and I don't ever want this to come across as I'm looking at this, because I criticize PlayStation a lot on the channel, but I want y'all to know the reason I criticize them is because they make some of my favorite games ever. That PlayStation 3 into PlayStation 4, that kind of mid-gen PS3 into late gen PS4 approach for Sony, for PlayStation. Those games, that style of cinematic experience, like they have some of my favorite games ever that released in that fold. The Infamous 2s and Uncharted 2s and Uncharted 4s and Last of Us and Tsushima and, on and on. Horizon, I love the Horizon games. They make excellent games when they're doing their thing. But maybe it is the ballooning budgets, and can we really invest $300-400 million in a single player game when we're only getting 10 million on we're only getting 10 million sales on this thing. So maybe it's not worth it to put $300-400 million into your single player games, but maybe it's let's try to fucking not make it like The Last of Us 2. You could have cut 10 hours out of that damn thing. How much money could you have saved by chopping 10 hours out of that damn game? You know what I mean? Anywho, Horizon, same thing. Like, there's definitely some bloat and feature creep that went on as we got, like, God of War. I think both of the God of War games were too big, 2018 and Ragnarok. Anywho, we're just rambling at this point. It's a bummer. This whole situation is a bummer, and I guess the silver lining, the end of the road, or the rainbow we can look at here is like, okay, well, hey, it does seem that they're damn near out of games to cancel at this point. They're, but it's the thing where you now we go a full generation without getting a bin game. We're gonna go a full generation without getting a Naughty Dog game because of you canceling factions. Crazy. Unless maybe Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet comes out in 2027, maybe. Or maybe it kind of closes out the generation the same way TLU 2 did, but I don't know. I kind of even doubt that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 2029 PS6 launch title. Hey, it's your hope with this whole situation is that they're just out of live service games to cancel, and there's hope to God that they're going to go to, because at one point it was seemed like a 70-30 push, 70% live service, 30% single player. Hopefully that's going to flip back around, and their priority now will be 70% single player, 30% live service, but we shall see.